Those of you who are keeping up with our World 11 series will know what to expect here by now. For those of you who are new to the channel, first of all hello, and secondly, this is the 5th instalment of a series we're doing at the moment on the best footballers in the world in each position, ultimately building up to our own World 11. Defensive midfield is probably the least glamorous and most underappreciated role in the world of football, but that is starting to change. Not long ago, your average or more casual football fan would often watch a match and feel as though the defensive midfielder didn't bring a lot to the party, with a lot of their dirty work going largely unnoticed. Now most people have come to accept that just about every great team needs a great holding midfield player. There are two kinds of defensive midfielders, anchors or destroyers, who love to defend and break up play, and deep line playmakers, who sit deep but look to control the tempo of a game and instigate attacks. We'll see examples of both here, but the ideal holding midfielder is a combination of the two. Here are our 7 best defensive midfielders in world football. Fabinho. I know some Liverpool fans feel as though their players have been a bit hard done by in this series, but Fabinho's inclusion in this 7, when we will see the calibre of player left out when we come to our honourable mentions, should go some way towards mending that relationship. Signed in the summer from Monaco for just under £14 million, Fabinho didn't explode into life at Anfield, but he has grown in importance as the season has gone on. Liverpool have a lot of competition for their midfield 3, but for me, Fabinho will be the first name in there, followed by Honourable, and then one of the others to partner those two. Fabinho is an expert in the type of behind-the-scenes dirty work that we talked about in the introduction. He's big and physical, has an eye for danger, and his direct passing and the speed with which he looks to get the ball into Liverpool's front 3 is so important to Jurgen Klopp's side. Wijnaldum, Henderson and Milner have all played more games than Fabinho this season, despite the midfielder having had a few games in defence, but we wouldn't be surprised to see him become as much of a mainstay as Alisson or Van Dijk next season, and rightly so. He takes 7th place for us. Blaise Matuidi. An enormously underrated footballer, you'll very rarely see Blaise Matuidi have a poor game. Aged 31 now, Matuidi has been a French international for almost a decade. He gave 6 years of fantastic service to Paris Saint-Germain, and he's been a mainstay in the Juventus side since signing for the Italian champions in 2017. Our first 2 players are a Frenchman and a Brazilian, and France and Brazil lead the way in terms of defensive midfielders in football right now. Matuidi isn't so much a sitter as an enforcer. One could describe him as a box-to-box player, but we're going to have this 7 for defence-minded midfield players, and then another for central and or attacking midfielders, so Matuidi fits in best here, and one suspects he'll drop deeper and deeper in the latter stages of his career. Right now, Matuidi is one of the hardest working footballers on earth. He is absolutely tireless in his running and crunching in the tackle. The French Footballer of the Year for 2017 and a World Cup winner in 2018, Matuidi is a force of nature in the middle of the park, and he was yet another masterstroke of a signing by the old lady. Frankie Dion. As a rule, defensive midfield players tend to emerge and reach the pinnacle of their powers a little later than, say, an attacking midfielder or a wide player. Well, Frankie Dion is just 21 years of age, and he's already among the most talented midfield operators in the game, so just how good he is capable of becoming is a quite frankly frightening prospect. Ajax have been a breath of fresh air in the Champions League this season, bringing Real Madrid's stronghold on the competition to an end with a wage budget supposedly smaller than Gareth Bale's individual salary. De Jong is arguably their most important player, keeping things ticking at the base of their midfield, and he has already signed off on a move worth a potential €86 million to Barcelona in the summer. De Jong is very much a holding midfielder in the deep-lying playmaker mould, not one to go flying into tackles or throwing his weight around, but a footballing purist, brilliant on the ball, intelligent in possession, and always looking for that opening to play the ball through. I think he's the 5th best holding midfielder in the world at 21, and I'd be surprised if he wasn't the best within the next 5 years or less. Casemiro. Real Madrid are of course in the midst of a pretty shoddy season, fresh off the back of 3 consecutive Champions League titles, although the man who guided them to those titles is at least now back at the helm at the Bernabeu. Whilst the goals of Cristiano Ronaldo were obviously a pretty integral factor in those successes, Real's midfield 3 of Modric, Kroos and Casemiro was a key factor as well. Modric and Kroos are both wonderful footballers, but it was the energy and the destructiveness of Casemiro behind them that allowed them to express themselves so freely. In 2016, Diego Simeone called Casemiro Real's most important player, and Marcelo said that with Casemiro alongside him, he felt like he could play until he was 45. The Brazilian international isn't the most technically gifted footballer in this 7, nor is he the best passer. In fact, he's probably the worst, but he's incredibly strong and robust, and Real will be lost without him. N'Golo Kante. We spoke in the introduction about there being two types of holding midfielders, enforcers and playmakers. Maurizio Sarri prefers the latter, and that's why he has taken the controversial decision to play Jorginho at the base of his midfield and N'Golo Kante in a more advanced role this season. Whatever his reasons, it's clear to see that Kante isn't as comfortable playing further forward. Despite not having played there all season though, Kante still makes our top 3 best defensive midfielders in the world. Prior to Sarri ball, Kante had won a league title with Leicester in defensive midfield, a league title with Chelsea in defensive midfield, being named as the Premier League Player of the Year, and a World Cup with France in defensive midfield, so one can see how Sarri's decision to play him out of position might be controversial. Kante is renowned for his relentless running, selfless attitude, and big smile, as well as coming across as one of the most humble top-class footballers in the world. Put him back in his position, and he may well challenge the top spot here. As things stand, I'm sure no one would begrudge him 3rd place. Sergio Busquets. The top 2 in this 7 presented a nightmarish decision between 2 players I hugely admire. Sergio Busquets is without doubt the finest defensive midfielder of his generation and one of the finest to have ever lived. One of only 8 or 9 current players to make our list of the 100 greatest footballers of all time back in November, Busquets is a genius, probably the most intelligent footballer of my lifetime and a master technician. However, we have to go on the here and now, and as we speak, there is one man I'd take over him in my ultimate World 11, so regrettably, it's 2nd place for Sergio. Busquets was fast-tracked from Barcelona's B team into the first team fold by Pep Guardiola, and it's easy to see why. Just about the perfect Pep player, Busquets became the pivot in an all-conquering Barca side with Xavi and Iniesta in front of him, quite possibly the finest midfield trio of all time. Whilst most of the others in this 7 are renowned for their tireless running and fierce tackles, you'll rarely see Busquets break a sweat, simply because he very rarely has to. The late great Johan Cruyff put it best early in Busquets' career, saying, positionally, he seems like a veteran with or without the ball. With the ball, he makes what is difficult look easy, he disposes of the ball with 1 or 2 touches. Without the ball, he gives us a lesson, that of being in the right place to intercept and running just to recover the ball. The honourable mentions. We said Fabinho had seen off some fine competition to make 7th place, and we weren't lying. We'll go country by country to keep things snappy, starting in the Premier League, where Manchester United sitter Nemanja Matic, and arguably Ander Herrera if one puts him in this bracket, deserves some recognition, along with the likes of Jordan Henderson at Liverpool, Lucas Torreira at Arsenal, Declan Rice at West Ham, Wilfred Ndidi at Leicester City, Eric Dyer at Tottenham Hotspur, and perhaps controversially, despite this season, I'd still say purely on ability, Jorginho at Chelsea as well. If one classifies him as a defensive midfielder, which we probably have to for the purposes of this series, then Ruben Neves at Wolves also must be mentioned. In Germany, the likes of Javi Martinez and Axel Witsel could be mentioned, but Thomas Delaney was the closest Bundesliga player to making our 7. There are some excellent defensive midfielders in the Portuguese Primeira Liga, such as Danilo Pereira at Porto and Lubomir Faiza at Benfica, along with former Sporting and now Real Betis star William Carvalho. Another La Liga player, Arturo Vidal, was probably the closest of our honourable mentions to making the 7 proper, but right now, we just edge towards Fabinho over him. Other players we could mention include the likes of Steven Nzonzi, Emre Can, Luis Gustavo, Daniele De Rossi, Wilmer Barrios, and Asaya Laramendi. As always, we can't acknowledge everyone, but do let us know your own top 7s in the comments, and obviously make sure you're subscribed to HITC Sevens for more content which has been given such glowing references as mildly watchable, quite good if your voice wasn't so annoying, and shit. Right, now for top spot. Fernandinho. It hurt not putting Sergio Busquets at the top of this 7 since the Barcelona man is such a special footballer, but it's a pretty special player who takes top spot as well. Fernandinho has been an excellent servant at Manchester City for 6 seasons, but since the arrival of Pep Guardiola, and particularly since the start of last season, he has been absolutely superb. He may be 33, but he does quite literally seem to get better and better the older he gets. An excellent reader of the game, Fernandinho is a master at cutting out attacks before they even truly get started. What's more, he's actually very good on the ball, he's rarely panicked, and he scores the occasional wonder goal. He's not as intelligent as Busquets, as strong as Casemiro, or as energetic as Kante, but he is the best blend of all three. I've lost count of how many times I've said Pep's toughest task at Man City will be replacing Fernandinho, but it still rings true. A top class player, and for our money, the best defensive midfielder in the world right now.